Greetings again, friends. I do this about every 4 years now. After the U.S. presidential elections, let's have a 2016 election reflection. First off, my condolences to all of those that are very unhappy about the way that the U.S. election turned out on Tuesday, and my congratulations to those that are exceptionally excited and happy about the way the election turned out. Before I go any further, please believe me when I tell you that I am actually quite apolitical on this entire campaign season and the voting itself and the potential for a triumph or disaster of a Trump presidency. I did not talk about this election at all in class, or very little. I know a lot of people wanted me to, but from the get-go, I kind of thought this was going to be much closer than all the pundits said. I kind of figured it was going to go down to the wire, and I knew it was going to entirely divide and polarize society, so I just kind of stayed away from it. But now that it's happened, and now that there are folks that are honestly despondent, disappointed, depressed, because they so did not like this Donald Trump guy, let me offer some silver linings. Now, still a lot to settle out here. Still got protests going on in major cities across the United States. The election happened on Tuesday. We're looking at 72 hours now since then to have some reflection, some retrospection, to sit down and chill and think about things. And I want you to now that you're a little calmer, think about some of these things. Silver lining number one to Donald J. Trump being elected president of the United States. Democracy worked, man. Democracy won. Again, I know half of you were exceptionally upset about what's going on here, but the people of the United States of America got to choose their leader freely and fairly, and they did. The press was 100% open to report on every single thing that happened, and they did. There's no way that you could be an uninformed voter in America, nor were there any major disruptions in polls anywhere across America, as was expected, because America is a democracy and it works. That is an awesome thing, and we should not lose sight of it, not for one single moment. This has not been the case for most of human history. It is still not the case for many parts of planet Earth. Even places that supposedly hold elections, they're not really democracies like the United States is a democracy, and I'm looking particularly at you, Russia, or even Turkey, or Egypt, and certainly not China. They don't even have elections. So all of these other places, even where elections occur, they're not true democracies in the same sense that the United States is. I'm talking those specifically. Do you really think people in Russia have a free and fair press and it's telling them what's going on? Hell, they don't even have more than one political party. Same is true in Egypt. The true test of democracy is when a society is so split, so divisive, so vitriolic, and each side hates each other so much. But the election happens anyway, and it happens peacefully, and there is a peaceful transfer of power. And that's what's happening in the United States of America. It is to be applauded. If everybody is happy, if everybody doesn't care about the election, no one pays attention, and there's a transfer of power, whoop-de-doo. It's not a real test of democracy. But you cannot get any truer and purer test of real democracy than you are having in the United States right this second. And it worked. Congrats, everyone! Silver lining number two. Keep in mind that this is kind of a natural cycle. It's time to give the other team a chance. Our country historically goes back and forth between political parties. We're a two-party system, and about every decade or so, 8 to 12 years, we give one team a shot at it, the Republicans, and then we switch 10 years later and give the Democrats a shot at it. To me, it's what keeps America healthy and keeps us in balance. Both sides share the power and go back and forth. And you look at this over the arc of history, you go this way, sometimes you go that way, sometimes you go this way, sometimes, but overall, you're in a trajectory that most everybody wants. You can't have that if only one political party is in power for 100 years. Again, go check out Russia. So in terms of giving the other team a chance, we're due. I actually, before the nominees were even decided for this election, I was telling students it's Republicans' turn. It's probably going to go Republican just because it's secular. having extremely clarifying potential on this also is a benefit to our society. And what I mean by that is, not only did Donald Trump, not only is the other team getting a chance, the Republicans now have a chance, they get their turn in power with Donald Trump, but the Republicans also control the House, the Senate, i.e. the Congress, and of course they're going to control the Supreme Court. They don't control the Supreme Court, but it'll be stacked heavily in their favor. This is the first time for a while that one political party holds all the cards. So even if you're despondent about this election and you're a diehard liberal or a diehard Democrat, you should kind of be celebrating a little bit, because now you can remain exceptionally political, and here's why. The Republicans are in charge of everything. Political gridlock should disappear. Things should get done. Problems should be fixed. Now, you may not like the way they're going to fix them, but something now has to happen. Because if nothing happens, if the problems don't get fixed, if jobs suddenly don't fly into America in the next 4 years, who's to blame? Who's to blame? Who's to blame? That's right. You only have one political party to blame. So if I was a Republican, I'd be exceptionally nervous. The pressure is super on the Republican Party right now to deliver. And deliver they will have to do, or a short 4 years from now, the voters will vote once again, and things will be reversed. So, if you're a Republican, you should be happy because things will be streamlined and things should get fixed. If you're a Democrat, you should also be kind of happy, because at least the change is going to happen, gridlock's going to disappear, and you'll have someone to blame if things don't get fixed. It's clarifying, right? Silver lining number 3. Donald Trump doesn't mean anything he has said. Now I know I'm going to start to lose Trump fans, but I'm telling you, it's a positive for the society as a whole. I do not believe that Donald J. Trump meant virtually anything he has said for the last 6 months of this election campaign. Not a word of it. None of it. I mean, we're going to find out. But he looked at the election as a game, and a game he wanted to win, and he said whatever it was going to take to win. I honestly don't think he even remembers 90% of what he has already now said, and I think it's just part of the election rhetoric that is now water under the bridge. It's actually the most positive thing I can say about the guy. Really, hasn't every single president, every single person who's ever run for president, haven't they all had this wildly impossible laundry list of things they're going to do or opinions they have and all the stuff they're going to do when they get into office? How many of them actually did hardly any of it? So, silver lining, he was not likely to get much of what he said done to begin with. And I don't believe he intends to do 90% of what he said. I know, again, that sounds terrible, but it's actually a compliment. He goes in with a clean slate. We'll see where he takes it from there. And that brings me to silver lining number 4. Donald Trump wants to be a winner. I'm a winner. You can be a winner too. What do I mean by that? Isn't he a winner already? I know some of you are thinking, boy, you're just pro-Trump. You just love Trump now. Or maybe some of you are saying, you don't love Trump enough. I don't care. Not interested. I'm saying Donald Trump wants to be a winner. He's staked his whole life and his whole reputation on it. And maybe he's a winner already. He won in business, I guess, although that's disputable. He won every episode of The Apprentice because he controlled the game. He won every game. He has now won the presidency of the United States, the most powerful position on planet Earth. He won. But just hold on a second, my friends. I don't think that's what Donald Trump is now counting as winning for the future. Because you're remembered by the last thing you did. So now he is president, and he has to win at being president, which means he's got to fix stuff. He's got to change stuff. He actually has to get something accomplished. And for him personally, winning means more jobs, more economic activity, restructuring the international system to benefit America more, stronger projection of power abroad, and perhaps even for less money, because he wants everybody to pony up to NATO more, and he wants all our allies to pay more. So you're talking about major changes. Which of these things do you think is bad for America? Now, again, we can dispute some of the ramifications of these things, but just on the face of it, which one of these things do you not want? Which one of these things do you think is bad for America? Which one of these things do you think doesn't help America win? So whether you love this guy or hate this guy, Aren't all these things really good for America and therefore good for you and you and you and you and everybody? That's what he's going to consider winning at this point in his career. And if he wins, then we all win Celebrity Apprentice. I just honestly don't think that rolling back civil rights, human rights, gay rights, women's rights, or having a more racially divided, turbulent American society would count as a win for him. It's just, how could that count for a win? If that's what his legacy is he wants to change all this other stuff that a lot of you are worried about, obviously America's going to be in turmoil. That's not a win for him. It's not something he wants. And that reiterates the previous point I just made. I honestly don't think he gives a shit about all of those social issues that he so wildly offended everybody on during the election campaign. I don't see him caring about gay marriage. Undoing a lot of those things is not going to put the W in the column for him for his presidency. He wants a positive historical legacy at this point. And that means sticking to some of these things that everybody kind of can rally behind. I could be wildly optimistic, but I don't think so. I think I'm kind of on point with that. And that brings me to silver lining number 5 for Donald Trump election. Trump is not beholden to anyone. And again, I know a lot of you hate him. That's okay. You do you. I'm not saying I particularly like him, but he is beholden to no one. And that is the first time anyone has held this high a position of office in America and possibly the world that doesn't owe anybody nothing. Why would I say that's a silver lining? He didn't have the support of either political party, honestly. Obviously, the Democrats didn't support him, but the Republicans, as a party, really didn't support him that much. He didn't take any money from them. He used his own money. Again, that's questionable, but he mostly used his own money. He didn't take large amounts of money from political action groups. He didn't take large amounts of money from Wall Street or businesses. All of the things that all politicians do, they have to have this money to do all this stuff. He didn't do any of that. And when all those other politicians take money to get in office, they're then beholden to those interests to get legislation passed, to be easier on the tax brackets, blah, blah, blah. Donald Trump is beholden to no one. And in that position, he is uniquely situated to make serious and significant structural changes to many aspects of the American economy and the American political system, and that is a huge silver lining. No previous presidents could simply go in and say, you know what, I'm going to change Wall Street. I personally am going to say this is what I want. I think this is going to help bring jobs back to America, so I'm going to penalize big companies, or I'm going to put restrictions on the way that the stock traders are ripping everybody off. No president before him could do that. This guy actually can, because everybody before him has taken money from all those entities. This guy hasn't. Now, am I suggesting he's going to do any of this? No. I don't know. I don't think he knows. But he's the only one that can, thus far, that's had this office, at least in my lifetime. So I could very easily see him going after particularly financial institutions to clean up their act and regulate them more, go after banks, Wall Street in general. Now, again, you may say, well, he's never going to do that. He's a big business person, too. He's a real estate guy. Yes, he's part of the big business elite, but he's so far above them now, and he didn't take anything from them. So he could become a superhero and say, yeah, we're not having any of that stuff anymore. We're not going to allow the financial markets to rule the U.S. government or the U.S. economy. And I would support that. So possible big silver lining number 5. He's not beholden to anybody. He could change things. Silver lining number 6. During the entire election campaign, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton said that they were going to have huge investments into infrastructure projects in America. That was promised by both of them, both candidates. This will almost certainly happen, and certainly happen soon, maybe in the first 100 days of the Trump presidency. And why is that a bad thing? How is that going to be a bad thing? Anytime you're going to say, okay, well, we might have to go into some more debt, but we're going to improve roads, maybe rail, maybe we'll finally get some good rail structure happening for passenger light rail or light rail. We're going to improve bridges. We're going to improve the internet. We're going to improve security. These are all good things. Anytime you're improving your infrastructure, you're making it a more conducive business environment, a better social environment. More people have more access to better stuff, freer movement of people and goods and services. It's good. So love him, hate him, whatever you think, this is not a bad thing. That is a huge silver lining. I have been amazed why the last 3 or 4 or 5 presidents haven't led with internal investment in terms of infrastructure projects. It's just kind of a win-win, but nobody's done it. I kind of think Barack Obama should have done that his first term in office, but it kind of just festered, and yes, he had a locked Congress and all that stuff. But Donald doesn't have a locked Congress, so it will go forward. You're going to see a lot of jobs created, a lot of investment internally, and that is a silver lining and a good thing. Silver lining number 7. Globalization is not reversible. A lot of folks are super worried that somehow Donald Trump is going to make America into Fortress America. And he may try. He said he's going to rip up all these trade agreements, and we're not going to have the status quo with NAFTA or the TPP or even with the EU. And he's going to renegotiate everything, and he's going to not support allies in NATO as much. That's fine. Those are words. It's rhetoric. He can do some of these things. But let me assure you, globalization as a whole, as a phenomena, is not reversible. We will not be going back in time. The world will keep on spinning. Movement of goods and services, and yes, even people, it's called immigration, will continue to happen. He can modify some things, but he can't stop it. So for anyone that's worried that suddenly the world economy is going to collapse because of one guy in charge of America and what he has said during an election campaign, take a chill pill. Things will keep going. There will not be a collapse of civilization or a collapse of international trade. There won't even be a collapse of international movement of people. People have been moving since there have been people, and they're not going to stop. They'll just have to find new routes or new ways or new strategies. And certainly the kind of international human rights, civil liberties, the bar for that is now an international bar. So I really wouldn't worry that things are going to go backwards on a global scale. I really don't think they're going to go backwards on an American scale, but certainly not a global scale. Saying you're going to stop globalization or you bring back a circa 1950s Americana, that's like saying you're going to stop the tide from coming in. Go get a big broom and stand out on the beach, and every time the tide comes in, get a broom and start sweeping it back. You can sweep for the next 4 years, and 4 years and 1 day from now, the tide is still coming in. So we're not going backwards on many aspects of globalization and world civilization that have been moving forward and moving forward at an exponential rate, actually. That's not going backwards. I think a lot of the good things about globalization will continue to go forward. Have a big problem with actually stopping some aspects of globalization, or at least rethinking them. In fact, let me take a TV time out here. I think that I am going to have to officially go on record here and support Donald Trump in his reassessment of globalization. He's talking particularly about jobs and foreign trade and free trade pacts and all that stuff. But what he's really saying is, I'm not sure I'm buying that all of this globalization stuff is good for all Americans. And honestly, please don't hate me. I believe he's right. I think it is actually past due for us as a society, us, not Donald Trump, us as a society to take a step back, take a deep breath, and reassess this globalization and free trade stuff as a whole. Who is really benefiting from all this? Who is benefiting? Is it everybody benefiting from globalization equally? Because if that's the case, then yes, we should keep on going as we're going. But globalization is happening at a breakneck pace right this second, meaning there's technological innovation and the movement of capital and the movement of finance and the movement of jobs and people moving on in immigration. And it's happening faster than ever before. And things are getting so hard to process as individual humans who were only here for 60 or 70 or 80 years tops. And our whole lifetimes are changing every 10 years. It's all new again. It's getting hard for us to process and assess. And I don't see any problem with taking that step back and saying, hang on a second. We've said for decades now, the mantra's been free trade is good. And if you ask every single economist, I assume on planet Earth, is free trade good? Every single one of them to a one would say absolutely. Oh, absolutely. If you look at the numbers, when countries get together and have free trade blocks, they join a free trade bloc, all their economies go up. The GDP of all economies goes up every time you enter a free trade bloc. That's fact. And we can bring it close to home here, as Donald Trump has done. NAFTA, the free trade bloc between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And back in 1994, when it was signed, all three economies have gone up. The GDP of all three economies has gone up ever since, and it's gone up faster than it was going up before they signed that pact. So from an economist standpoint, free trade is awesome. And really, that example is true all around the planet. Join up, all the European countries join up into the EU, everybody gets richer. But my question is, wait a minute, who's getting richer? And I think maybe even indirectly, maybe accidentally, Donald Trump is asking the same questions. Wait a minute, who's getting richer here? Yes, the GDP of America has gone up since 1994. Hell, it's gone up since 1970. But who's getting that money? Because it's not the average white worker in Detroit who voted for Donald Trump. And in fact, it's not the average fill in the blank of your color American since the 1970s. Wages have been stagnant in the since the 1970s. Wealth disparity has increased since the 1970s. So simply saying, well, the GDP's gone up, free trade is awesome. You may even be able to look at the numbers and say, well, GDP per capita has gone up, so free trade is awesome. But American society right now in 2016 is not buying it, and that's why Donald J. Trump just got elected. The wealth may be increasing, but wealth disparity has increased faster. Meaning free trade is absolutely 100% totally awesome for Apple and for Microsoft and for Exxon and for Walmart and McDonald's. It is awesome for them. And it's awesome for their shareholders, who are all these companies are worth billions and billions and trillions of dollars. And that's why GDP has gone up. But it has not trickled down to the rest of society, not equally. And you start pulling in financial institutions and the Bear Stearns and Freddie Mac, and all of these traders are making billions of dollars now too, but it's not filtering down to the masses. So I think it's past due to say, wait a minute, yeah, free trade is cool because we like having cheap stuff from China. But is it really that beneficial to society as a whole? I think the great number, number 7? The great number 7 silver lining here is, I think we as a people, started by Donald Trump, are going to have a serious conversation about, okay, what should we be doing? Should we have these free trade blocks? Should we continue to enter? I mean, the economists all say they're great, and politicians love them, and businesses love them. But what about the rest of us? It's time to start asking these very deep questions. And love him or hate him, he has started that conversation. And I think it's great. Okay. Number 8. The number 8 silver lining. And this is perhaps not so much a silver lining as I do want you to deeply reflect upon this, especially if you are a Democrat or a liberal or just an anti-Trump person. Again, I'm not defending him. It's not where I'm going with this. This is for your own personal health and your own personal good and for the good of the country. I want you to understand the silver lining number 8 about the people that supported Donald Trump. They are not all stupid / homophobic / racist / bigoted / xenophobes / fascist. They are not. Not all of them. Are some of them absolutely sexist, right-wing, racist nuts? Sure. But it's a pretty small percent. Please take faith in the fact that certainly not all of the people who voted for Donald Trump are that extreme. It's very easy to fall into that trap because you're very emotional about the election and you're like, no, my side lost. All those people there are horrible. They're horrible people because they supported this horrible person. Deep breath. Obviously, they're not all horrible. They're people you know. They're people in your neighborhoods. A lot of them aren't even telling you they voted for Donald Trump. Keep in mind that this vote was largely, again, a protest vote, an anti-government vote, an anti-people left behind vote, an anti-globalization vote, an anti-Republican Party vote, an anti-Democratic Party vote. There are people that are just unhappy about the direction that their country has been going in or that their personal lives have been going in. And they simply said, no one has spoken for me or done anything I like for decades. Again, wages have been stagnant. Society has gone increased in civil liberties some, but it's bothered some people because they've gotten left behind. There's a whole sorts of issues I could unpack here. I just want you to understand, first off, they're not all evil. Second, it's not even half of the country. Everybody wants to throw around these terms. So half the country voted for Trump, and so that half of them are bad. No, as per usual, it's an international embarrassment for us that only half the people that could vote even did. So of the people that could vote, okay, half of them didn't, so they're gone. Of the half left, half voted for Donald Trump. So that's a quarter. So 1/4 of people supported Donald Trump, and of that quarter, I think it's a very small percentage that are the misogynist, crazy, racist nuts. The other folks, I think, have some legitimate gripes, and it's one of the reasons why Donald Trump just won that election. So instead of berating a whole group of people that you don't know personally, and probably you don't know at all, try, as always, to empathize and understand, okay, why I don't like this guy so much. Why would other people? Don't just dismiss them. Think about why. That's the only way we as a society start to bridge things. And I think because we're taking turns between political parties, I think it's a positive, very positive thing. It's time that people on the left side of the aisle started thinking more deeply about the motivations of people on the right side of the aisle. Vice versa, of course, because people on the left side of the aisle are going to fight really hard to maintain the things that they want. And so people on the right side of the aisle, they have all the power right now. I'm hoping they start thinking more deeply, too, of, okay, we have the power. What motivates those other folks over there? We can't keep doing business as usual. And that brings me to silver lining number 9. I actually think the Trump election is, I won't say great, but I will say it is past due. What? Silver lining number 9, our political system, that is the United States of America's political system, needed a shock. That's what populist candidates provide. Donald Trump is not the first populist candidate to do this, even in American history. There are many populist candidates throughout U.S. history that have never gotten as far as he got, but who had generated enough popular support for popular issues and expressed the popular opinion of folks who have been marginalized and enacted change because the political system's like, holy crap, there's this political party starting up over here under a populist candidate who wants all this stuff. Okay, we're listening to them now. We'll appease them. That has not happened for so long in American history that's why it's this huge, great shock and half or a quarter of the country voted for Donald Trump. Because the American political class has become too despondent, too distant, and completely unresponsive to the American electorate. This election really should not have come as a huge shock to you. Again, I'm not saying I'm super smart or had any clairvoyant power, but I never understood why anyone thought this was a runaway election from the get-go. People were just dismissive. Oh, no, Trump's crazy. He's not going to win. Oh, no, he said all these crazy things. He's not going to win. But all the polls just stayed close. I'm like, it just proves how detached the political system and the media, to a certain extent, is from the majority of folks in the country. And I'm saying the majority of folks on the left and the right. I'm not saying they are unresponsive to the needs of white, working class, uneducated, or not college educated white people in the industrial belt. No, the political class has not really been in touch with the Democrats have not been really in touch with their base. Obviously, they lost. The Republicans have not been in touch really with their base. Obviously, Donald Trump took over their party and did with it what he wanted to. So this shock is healthy. And political systems need it every now and again to kind of take politicians and just shake them and say, yeah, you see what happened there, buddy? You better get your head out of the clouds and start doing what people want. And I'm not saying they're supposed to do every whim that the American public wants, but they're elected officials. They should at least be doing something or trying. And they have failed to do that for so long that they themselves had no idea what their own voters wanted on either side of the party. So, yeah, the shock was needed. That's why I did a whole podcast on populism. Because, as I said, Donald J. Trump is not the first populist candidate ever in American politics. nor is he the only one on planet Earth right now. In fact, populism is on the rise, and it is responsible for the rise of more right-wing parties across Europe who are anti-immigrant, more pro-nationalist. Its populism is the reason why the Brexit happened, that is Great Britain voting to leave the European Union, renegotiating trade deals and stopping immigration. All the same themes that Donald Trump talked about. And that's why populism is in America now too. And of course you have the leader of the Philippines, who's quite frankly an open populist. So this is a theme of our time in the world, and it's not to be ignored. It is a true wake-up call to political systems worldwide, and especially here in America, that just got jolted to reality in what should not have been that big of a shock. And that brings me to, I think our electorate needed a shock, and that is the people. Yes, the politicians are detached, but the people of America, I think for far too long, have been far too clueless about not only how different segments of our society work, meaning the Democrats just can't get the Republicans and the Republicans just can't get the Democrats. That's problematic. But also that American population seems to think that the government's going to do all this stuff for them. And I'm not talking about getting welfare, Social Security. I'm talking ideologically that the American population has been lulled into this complacency that they think that's the government's job. The government's going to do it. And I don't even like the government, but the government's going to do it. I wish there was small government, but the government's going to do it. The government don't do nothing, especially when it comes to social issues. The U.S. government, nor any government anywhere, has ever proactively done anything specifically on social issues. And pick whatever social issue you want. I don't care. Abortion rights, gay rights, civil rights. I don't care. Choose any of them. The government doesn't act on anything. Governments react. And that is certainly the case in the United States of America. The government reacts to what the population wants or wants done. So we've been lulled into this, oh, well, the government is going to fix this or have abortion or outlaw abortion or make this legal, the government, all the way up to the Supreme Court, only reacts to what the demands of the population are at that time. We have now become, I'm going to say it, I'm going to be offensive here. We have just become so lazy that we think going and pressing a freaking button once every 4 years is being active. And half of us don't even do that. Pressing a button once every 4 years is not being politically active. It's barely participating. And you don't think for a second that you're fighting for a cause by pressing a button once every 4 years. Sorry if that's offensive to you, no matter what your political stripe is. But if you care so much about women's rights, gay rights, abortion, non-abortion, if you care that deeply, if you care about rebuilding inner cities or decreasing wealth disparity, if you care, you actually need to get out there and do something about it, because the government ain't going to. The government will react to you doing it. So if you're that upset about what just happened in this election, and you truly fear for the direction our country's taking, or there was apocalypse, or whatever you think, guess what? Here's the silver lining that Donald Trump, being elected president, has just handed you. It's time for you to get active. Do you need more reason now to have a more politically proactive population than this election? Which, let's be honest, pissed off everyone on all sides for the last 6 months, and now maybe half the people are kind of happy. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And for those of you that are fearful that all these bad things are going to happen, good! Get scared! But don't sit around waiting to press a button 4 years from now. You need to get out there and fight for what you believe in. I'm not talking fist fight. But you know what? Now that I just said that word out loud, fist fighting, here's another silver lining. America's a freaking awesome place to live in terms of fighting for rights. It's an awesome place to live in terms of the rights that you currently have. Again, there's this a weird speculation among liberal circuits that suddenly Armageddon is coming to the civil rights and liberties of Americans. I don't think so. And if that is the case, then get out there and fight for it, man. You are in the most excellent position, the best fighting situation ever. And here's why. Do you think, whatever your passion is, whatever social justice you want fixed, do you think the people who have fought for that in the past had it easier or harder than you have it right now? Let me go ahead and answer that for you. It's way easier for you right now. People in the past, for decades to 2 centuries of American history, have fought and died physically in fist fights, literally given their lives for civil rights movements and women's suffragette and gay rights. They have gotten the shit beat out of them. They have spent their time and their money. They've risked life and limb. They have spent all of their capital, all of it, in order to get something done and change society. And in large part, they have done that. So for anyone who now is fearful that those rights may be taken from you, good! Get out there and do something about it. Don't sit around and wait to press a button 4 years from now. This is the most perfect time to do some suffering and some heavy lifting. Get out there and organize. Get out and do something. If you believe nothing else about Donald J. Trump, like him or hate him, you have to understand he is a change agent, which means a lot of things are changing in America in the next 4 years. Don't sit by passively if you don't like the way things are changing. Because when a change agent comes, they can't often control all the change. In fact, they rarely can. So Trump's going to come in with his agenda and his Republican government to change things in one direction. But once the genie gets out of the box, other change agents can come in as well. You can be one of those change agents if you don't like the direction the country's going and you don't really have any excuse. You will not be risking your life and limb like people whose shoulders you're standing upon who originally fought for all those rights. So get out there and do something. And that brings me to the final, number 10 silver lining of the Donald J. Trump election. There is something you can do. And that is that I think the election of Mr. Trump is, for the first time in decades, if not a century, there is real potential for a third party movement. I've been waiting for a third party my entire life. Again, I've only been around a half a century, but it's never been a reality that could take hold. But I think the disparity, wealth disparity, but also political disparity in our country, the veracity of which the people are fighting on either sides, the vindictiveness, the anger, the hatred that this election brought out, to me, demonstrates one thing perfectly clear. There's tons of room in the center. Because most people, whether they voted for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, I believe most people genuinely want a better America. They genuinely are not racist or sexist or xenophobic. Generally want the economy to go up, and maybe it means some free trade, maybe it needs some limitations on free trade. Generally are pretty open about most social issues. I know some of you are passionate about certain things, but generally, a third party is very ripe for the picking in American society right this second. Because to me, it's perfectly clear that most people are somewhere closer to the center than they are the radical edges. And most people, I believe if you polled them right now, were sickened and disgusted by the election, even if their guy won. I think they thought the election was horrible. We can do better. And a third party, which has long been a unicorn for American society, has some pretty good basis right now. Public disgust with the system, this anti-protest, anti-government, anti-globalization vote plays into that. People who want to maintain civil liberties will play into this and be like, I don't want all the noise. I want something's actually going to happen. I think that Donald Trump is going to be a change agent for 4 years, maybe 8. But unless a viable third alternative party is set up in the meantime, then when he goes out of office, it's back to politics as usual. A third party ensures that that will not happen. It's ripe for the picking. Let's start a third party, and that's something you can be quite active about as well. So those are the 10 silver linings that I have picked out for you that hopefully make you feel a little bit better about President-elect Donald Trump. Again, I'm not defending him. I'm certainly not defending anyone in the election. I'm not saying I was a huge supporter of his because I didn't really support anybody. I'm more of an athletic supporter. Oh, wait a minute. That's an article of clothing. Ha! Just joking. Hopefully you feel a little bit better about America. There is a lot of great potential here. It's an exciting time to be alive. Don't sit around and whine waiting for the next time to press a button. Get out there and do something. America is great. Maybe it'll be great again. Maybe it's just going to be better. I say, don't make America great again. Make America better. How is it you can do that? That's up to you to decide, and then go do it. But for now, party on.